lumped them both together. So I was able to raise enough money to participate with the Fuller Center, and also to give funds to the Alumni Association, which will go to some deserving college students over at Tennessee State University.
And so you've been involved with charitable work as well as part of your strengthening program, I would imagine, in terms of bicycles. And now, how many people actually rode with you this time?
Well, I kind of broke it into 3 segments. The first segment was actually driving my car from Nashville to Seattle. So that was on my own, going through all the states that we just saw and getting to Seattle. Once I got to Seattle and with the Fuller Center, and I think he explained in the video, there were 30+ people who were going all the way from Seattle, Washington to Washington, D.C. And I participated in the first 2 weeks of that, which, you know, was the one that had really the most participation throughout all the segments that they're going to do. They break it into 9 one-week segments. So I did segments 1 and segments 2, you know, going from Washington and then going into Idaho, and then the second week going from Idaho and into West Yellowstone, Montana. So approximately, you know, 30+ people who are going the whole way, but at any point during any week of the segment, there could be 40 or 50 people with them.
And so people become involved with this, and it plays a very, very important part in what you call charitable work that the Fuller Center does.
Right.
I understand that you need funds in order to keep this activity going and in order
definitely.
to support this. Talk about that fundraising aspect of it.
The donations go towards the national organization, the National Fuller Center for Housing, but there's also a local organization. We do have the Middle Tennessee, what we call a covenant partner, which is one of the local chapters. So the Middle Tennessee Fuller Center for Housing is where all my donations went. Each cyclist gets to allocate the funds to whichever local organization they would want to. So with there being covenant partners all over the country, of course I chose, you know, the one that most affected me and back at home. And so I'm able to raise money for them. It goes towards the local organization, and then the local organization seeks applicants who, you know, need a hand and need help with their housing.
And so it serves a real purpose in terms of bringing people together and giving an idea in terms of how things might be, you might be able to achieve certain things. And what we're going to do, we're going to take this second commercial break, and then we're going to come back and allow you to further elaborate upon some of these things. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. And so we can go right into this?
Yeah. Well, he's going to give you a 2-minute break. And then
okay, then. That sounds good.
just remember to try to keep your body turned towards the camera, because you got
Towards that camera?
straight on Mr. Haney.
Okay, got it.
You got it. So you're picking up everything?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I didn't know how this would work. Now, this final segment will have those pictures, but for me to open it up, what do you want to talk about specifically? I mean, in addition to the pictures.
Just open up with that there's 3 parts. So tell us about, you know, the 3rd part of your mission, because we already got me driving to Seattle, what I did from Seattle to Yellowstone, and then just say, you know, well, tell me about the 3rd part of your bicycle adventure.
Which is what? What do you call it?
Which is basically just driving from Montana, getting from Montana and back home. Montana and back home.
30 seconds.
Bicycling out west. What is it?
Summer cycling adventure.
Summer cycling adventure.
Stand by, Dr. Haney.
Okay. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Alvin Haney, and he's giving us some information in reference to some of his summer cycling adventure. And let us see if we can pick up, AJ, and talk about some of the other activities. And I think we have some images that we want to project on the screen, dealing with some still photos and et cetera.
Right. The third leg of my trip was after I left the Fuller Center, kind of going back home. So, of course, I had to go through South Dakota, and that's where we see Mount Rushmore, and I was able to stay in Spearfish, South Dakota, and meet some great people there. I was able to go to North Dakota, and there we see Fargo and Moorhead. In North Dakota, that Fargo is right on the border of Minnesota, so I was able to cycle in 2 states there, and I was able to cover 2 birds with 1 stone. Same thing with Iowa and Nebraska. I stayed in Omaha, Nebraska, and so therefore I was right there on the border with Iowa, so I kind of got 1 foot in each of those 2 states and was able to cover that particular area. From there, went on to Chicago, and one of the suburbs of Chicago is Oswego, and I was able to do cycling in kind of the Chicago suburbs as well, staying with relatives and just, kind of seeing Lake Michigan and all of that. From there, went on to Michigan and Indiana. I was able to stay at South Bend, Indiana, which was on the border of Indiana and Michigan, kind of strategically placing those particular states where I could cycle in 2 states at once. So there's my completed map, or where I've done so far. I've covered 38 out of the 50 states. I only have the East Coast to do, and from what I hear from the future plans for the Fuller Center is that next year they are actually going to cycle the East Coast. So their plans for next summer are to have 2 different rides. The ride that they're going to do from Seattle, Washington down to Oceanside, California. So they're going to do the West Coast ride, and then of course they're going to bring our supplies in van all the way across the country, and then they're going to start in Portland, Maine and go down to Key West, Florida. So at some point in there, in the Portland, Maine to Key West, I should be able to cover 10 more of those states, bring me up to 48, leaving me with only Alaska and Hawaii before I've cycled in all 50 states. So that's where I'm headed. And
so your goal is to cycle in 50 of the continental United States of America, and so you've almost accomplished that in a real sense.
I'm very close. I started off with 25, and I got 13 new states, so I'm at 38, and really looking forward to trying to achieve my goal of having all 50 states. That's what I want to do.
Is there much competition among riders to see who can get to as many states as possible?
Well, there's camaraderie around riders.
Yeah, well, I mean, but
as far as locally, I do know a few local cyclists who have done, a lot of the states. I don't know of any that have done all 50, but if there's competition, then I hope I'm in there, or I'm part of that pack. Cycling, it has great health benefits. It's one of the things that I really love to do. Most cyclists, I would say, are former runners. Used to be a runner, and then when the knees give out or you've had a few surgeries, you turn into a cyclist. You ask the doctor, well, what should I do to keep my health up? And they say,